Greetings, this is Adele Derail of Tales of Tinseltown, the 1930s magazine about Hollywood, where anything is insanely possible and everyone is possibly insane.
Hollywood! Hollywood!
I kept Douglas Fairbanks on his toes. Hollywood!
Hollywood!
I snapped Harlow popping out of clothes. Hollywood!
Hollywood!
I caught Crawford in a striking pose.
Tales of Tinseltown unveiled.
My marvelous movie magazine shows what's behind a classic scene, plus tarnish around the silver screen. The public wants to know. I tell how some starlets got their start, served up as breakfast a la carte. Review Gary Cooper's biggest part. The public wants to know. Gossip on heroes who enamor us. Gossip, the lurid and the glamorous.
When new stars arise,
Or behave unwise. I'm the first one who will boost them up or cut them down the side. No actress can beat the parts I play. Snooping and spying every day. My columns uplift the USA.
the public wants to gossip. Gossip, I can't wait to look. New tales, true tales.
Filmdom's holy book. My news can make farm girls ditch their work.
Read who's been tickling Billy Burke.
I say who's a gem and who's a jerk.
The public wants to know.
From Nome to New York, my readers see.
Who's bound to make film history?
And who's bound to live in infamy.
The public wants to chatter, chatter. Tales of fame and lost. Glitter,
Chitter,
chatter you can trust.
the studio heads await my tales.
She can predict as sharp as nails.
Whose movie succeeds and whose dud fails.
The public wants to know. Chatter,
Makes routine days seem jazzier.
chatter.
Makes cocktail parties snazzier.
I hope that Adele writes up something swell.
On my latest film,
Or else we'll give some other actress hell.
Let Chaplin raise Cain or Errol Flynn.
I'll soon reveal
Their latest sin.
I've even got dirt on Rin Tin Tin to hand his duty on.
We've seen the sheen of what's on screen, but what's unseen, the public wants to know. Or you can show we love it so. The public wants to know. Tell us more.
Sure!
The public does indeed want to know, and that's why we're here on Beyond the Green Room. Now, it's not about Hollywood today, it's more about the theater, but that exciting song with some of the royalty of Broadway singing is by one of my guests today, and I would like to bring my three wonderful guests on one by one, and we'll get the dish and the chat and all of the stories started. My first guest is the writer of that wonderful piece, and he is a librettist, a lyricist, an author, and I think we've actually seen him in the background of several film and TV projects lately. That may surprise you, but we'll find out about that too. Please welcome Michael Colby.
I came prepared.
Wonderful, wonderful.
The main singer was Harriet Harris, backed up by Christine Bianco, Clea Blackhurst, Nat Chandler, Jake Epstein, Allison Fraser, Richard Kine, and Tony Yazbek. And the music was by Paul Katz.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, it reads like a who's who of Broadway, and it is a tribute to all of your work that we'll talk about this more, but it just seems like anybody who is anybody on Broadway wants to record one of your songs. So
Hey, my day. Thank you.
well, let's bring on the other two guests. This lady is somebody that I adore on stage and off. I haven't seen her in a really long time. She's been in many Broadway shows and all across the country. She always seems to be working. A wonderful singer, actress, and dancer. Please welcome Tari Kelly.
Hi.
Were you dancing just now to make that entrance? It looked like you just did your
I tried to do an entrance.
Everybody's so theatrical today. What is that about? Oh,
We're starved.
right. It's Beyond the Green Room, yes. Okay, my third guest, last but not least, is a wonderful director and choreographer and a longtime friend. He's also a teacher and a hell of a nice guy, a real mensch, Gary John LaRosa.
Hey, David, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's nice to have the three of you here on my birthday. And Michael has provided his own green room. And the two of you have such lovely settings behind you. It's as if we hired an art director. Shoestring Productions presents Beyond the Green Room. So the way we start Beyond the Green Room every week, if you haven't seen any of our shows yet, is I put you all on the spot. We do 1 degree of David Edwards, and I ask you, how do we know each other? It may be a little different in your perception than my perception, and that's where the fun comes in, and it opens up the conversation. I'm going to ask Gary John first, because I think we've known each other the longest.
Well, I had the wonderful opportunity to direct and choreograph you in, I think, what was one of many productions of La Cage aux Folles that you did. And if I'm not mistaken, it was at Westchester Broadway Theater.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even remember what year it was, but I do remember you were absolutely tremendous. And I'm not just saying that, sincerely tremendous in the role of Zaza. And it was such a joy to work with you. And I have seen your work over the years as a performer and also as a director, and that has been wonderful to see. Your path widen and grow and all of that.
Well, I'm kvelling. I'm blushing. I'm a big fan of yours also, but I have to tell you, there's actually, I believe we met some years even earlier than that. We were both performing in an Al Carmine's
That was my other life. That was my other life.
I was playing an operatic prince of some sort who was very vain, and I remember I had a very tight tunic and I had to sing a very high note at the end of my aria, and the costume designer said, well, if you can't do it without, I said, it's too tight. I can't reach the note. And she said, well, why don't you unzip it a little bit? And it was a great bit, because right before I hit the high note, I stood up there and unzipped, and then
of course you did.
You got to laugh. So, sometimes the costume designer is definitely your friend in more ways than one. But you were, I think you were playing an animal or something. I don't remember, but.
Or that was at Judson Church, right?
Yes, that was it.
That was a long time ago. But so I do remember you from that, but I had completely forgotten about that because it was so long ago. We won't even talk about the years.
Yes, but you were performing in that, so it was before your wonderful directing career took off, and we had a few near misses since then that I was hoping we could do another La Cage, and I wasn't available, and I was sad about that, but we'll do it again. Anyway, all right. It's really unfair to ask Michael this, so I'm going to wait. Because I'm going to ask Tari, how did we meet?
We met in Triumph of Love. That's where we met. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. When was that? Was that 2000? That was 2000.
Oh, well, we were
What?
Yeah, but you were terrific in that show. We had an amazing cast. I think it was one of the first productions of Triumph of Love after Broadway.
Yeah, it was. It was an incredible. It was really a great. It's a great show. I mean, I know a lot of people have problems with it, but I loved playing that role. I played Leonid. But what a fun time that was.
Yeah,
very challenging, but really fun.
Of the affection of at least two of us in that show.
I know, right? not a bad thing. No, it was lovely at the Skylight Theater in Milwaukee, which is a lovely little jewel box of the theater. It's still running, but not doing anything right now, obviously, because of the pandemic. But just oh my gosh, just a lovely time. Just a really fun pants roll. I cut all my hair off.
Yeah, it was. Yes, it definitely what they call in the opera world a trouser roll. Yes. You were terrific, and the production.
So were you?
Was thank you. It was that theater was, as you say, such a jewel box of a theater, and they built the costumes from scratch, which we like to never see in regional theater anymore. And it was a gorgeous production. We had a big orchestra, and
it was really a treat. And nobody does that show, so to have had that opportunity to do that show, was really a treat as well.
Absolutely. All right, Michael, how do you think we might know each other?
Well, this is just coincidence, but if you Google my name and Al Carmine's, I wrote one of the go-to interviews with Al Carmine's. It's in the library of NYU. And as far as the Fantastics are concerned, I've had many friends from that cast: Carol Demas, Sarah Rice, Judy Blazer, Christopher Seppi, the late great Christopher Seppi, was led the lad in Charlotte's Suite. And so I don't know if those are any of the connecting
it certainly connects the dots, but I have to tell you, fairly recently, I sat right behind you in a reading of a musical that you contributed lyrics to, Boynton Beach
Club.
Yes, that was. I work a lot at Surflight Theater as a director and an actor, and Steve Steiner asked me to come to the reading, and I knew it was you because I saw your name on the program, but also the way a lyricist reacts to hearing his own work being performed is different.
I was mouthing all the lyrics, I guess.
So, but actually, I have to tell you something that's even more of a revelation, perhaps, to you. I was a big fan of your show North Atlantic many years ago.
I asked North Atlantic.
Well, for those of you who don't know North Atlantic, it was a wonderful spoof of Rodgers and Hammerstein shows. And I heard it. I never saw it, but I heard the recording in my apartment when I was just out of college. I just moved in with a roommate in New York, and he was on that recording.
Yes.
Remember John Barone?
Yes, I knew you were going to say John.
Yes, he was my first roommate in New York, and he played me this wonderful recording. And I thought, who is this guy? So I've known your name over the years. I never got to perform any of your shows, but
there's always
I almost did, because I believe I auditioned for you for the role that went to the wonderful Chris Seppi and in Charlotte's Suite many years ago. I remember you guys, the whole team liked me very much, but I think Chris had it in the bag at that point.
That was one of the great auditions. He came in, he was like the personification of the character. Actually, Charlotte's Suite was a prequel to Ludlow Lad, which is a sung through Christmas operetta, and someone else had played the part and he wasn't available. So we were having a hard time finding anyone. And Christopher walked in and I cried, because first he looked exactly like the character I imagined, and when that angelic voice came out, I was just weeping. And he's a revelation in the part.
Well, John Barone also is no longer with us for many years, but yeah, he the same thing, unfortunately. Chris and John, the last epidemic, so to speak, that is still going on. That I don't mean to bring a downer, but they both succumbed to AIDS. And I remember talking about the Fantastics. I closed the Fantastics on Sullivan Street, and the night that we closed, Laurie Noto had put up all the pictures of all the people, those huge Van Williams photographs that were in the lobby of all the people, of the alumni, because they had taken down all of the memorabilia from the lounge upstairs, and there was bare walls. So everybody's picture was up there on the walls. And in one section, there were a bunch of people,
Christopher, I believe, was the longest running boy in the original production of the Fantastics. And he left to do Charlotte's Suite.
See that? See that? You took him away from the Fantastics, but we're glad you did. It's a wonderful recording. It's now out on CD.
Yes, same company as has released Tales of Tinseltown, J Records, and you can see clips of North Atlantic. I just put them up on YouTube, including some of the original cast members that include Laurie Tan-Chin, who's now famous for Nora from Queens, and Susan Bigelow. This was her New York debut, and she went on to play quintessential Rodgers and Hammerstein heroine. She did South Pacific in Center. She did Ado Annie in the succeeding Christine Ebersole. And it was just a wonderful cast. She also did the original "I'm going to wash that gray right out of my hair" commercial.
Well, she was in a teapot when I worked with her, and I was
Beauty and the Beast.
Yes. So yeah, I know very well who Susie was or is. So Tari, it seems to me you must have played Ado Annie sometime.
Yes, I've played it 3 times. Once in my 20s, once in my 30s, and once in my 40s.
Well, so you mean in the future, right? I mean,
right? Yeah. In the future.
West Holmes, when they did the revival in the was it the 80s? She was insulted because she wasn't asked to do Ado Annie again.
I'm like, it's Ann Eller or bust at this point. I'm like, I just don't want to play that young anymore.
I don't know. I'm sure you could still pull it off.
Oh, you're very sweet. No, the last time I played it was at the Lyric Opera in Chicago. It was when they started doing all the Rodgers and Hammerstein shows. They were doing one a year. This was back in 2013. So this is the first one they did. So the production was so lush and huge, and we did all the original choreography. And Jemsy Delap. She came out and she taught us, and that was really interesting, and fun and different. And so we did all the original stuff, and so that was the last time I did it. Yeah, but I was in my 40s. Who was it? Oh my gosh! See, now this is why I'm older.
Now I put you on the
I gotta think of his name. Yeah. I can't remember. Isn't that awful? I gotta look it up.
I know Kate Baldwin did The King and
I can see him in my head, but it'll come to me and I'll just squirt it out.
On the spot.
No, it's okay.
Because I have a feeling it might have been somebody I know, but my gosh,
Curtis Holbrook.
Okay, it wasn't somebody I know.
There we go. I knew it would just come to me.
So talking about doing shows over and over again, Gary. You talked about yes, Lacage has been a perennial for me, and even more than that, I think 12 Men of La Manchas. But I think you must hold some kind of a record for Fiddler on the Roof. You've done it everywhere with everyone, and even that gala in New York. So how did you fall into that?
Well, honestly, I think it was in the stars for some reason. The first Broadway show I saw as a child growing up on Long Island was Fiddler on the Roof. And there are the first Broadway show that I was in was Fiddler on the Roof. And at that point, I had done, because then I was performing before I gave that up, and I had done productions of Fiddler in summer stock. I did a European tour of Fiddler where it was in German, and I learned the show phonetically because I didn't speak German. So I had done all these productions of Fiddler on the Roof, and when I went into the Broadway show, this is kind of a long story, but I'll try to tell it quickly. I had been auditioning for another show and was at the Equity Lounge, and somebody came up to me and said, "Are you in Fiddler on Broadway?" And I said, "No, why?" And they said, "Oh, I thought I saw your face in the photos outside the Gershwin." And I said, "Well, I wish I was, but no, I'm not." And 5 minutes later, I ran into somebody that was in the show. And I asked them, because now I have this idea in my head, if there were any openings or anyone was leaving, because I knew the original choreography and all that. And they said, "No, but we've had a lot of illness, so maybe you want to drop a headshot and resume at the stage door." So I was waiting to do this summer stock audition, and I thought, well, I'm going to do that. And I knew this person that I was talking to in the show, and a gal that I had gone to high school with was in the show. So I left my headshot resume, and I explained that I knew the show really well and had done a lot of productions of it, and that I knew these people in the show and would love to audition for them. So I did my audition, and I went down to the village where I was living, and I walked in the door and the phone rang, and it was the stage manager. And he said, "We want to see you." And I said, "When?" And he said, "Now." So I literally got my music and things together again. I headed back up to the Gershwin, walked in the stage door, and there was nobody there. And I literally walked onto the stage looking for this audition, not realizing it was on the 4th floor. And this weird thing just happened. I was on stage with Tevye's house, and I just felt completely at home. So I went upstairs to do the audition. There were only 2 other guys there, one of whom was Danny Burstein, and he was not, well, he was Danny Burstein, but he wasn't the Danny Burstein that we all know and love now. And one other guy. So we went in, we sang, and then they asked us to dance, and something just kicked in. I said, "Well, okay, you got to give a performance now." We were doing the bottle dance. So I did that, and they hired me, and they said, "Be back at 7:00, and whatever you do, watch from the wings, and you're going to cover Mendel, and you're going to swing 6 guys." And I said, "Okay." So I got back to the stage door, and if this story gets too long, tell me. But at 7:00, and they put me in the stage manager's office, and he told me that at this point they were having a hepatitis epidemic in the show. And they said, as you probably noticed when you signed in, there were 12 people out of the show that night, and every cover and so they were looking for somebody who really know the show well to take over. So then he proceeded to tell me that I was going on that night. So mind you, this is, it's 7:00, my first time, in this environment, really, outside of the audition. And they sent me to the dressing room and said, "We're going to have to violate an equity rule for one night because we don't have a costume ready for you because this is so unexpected." So I get in costume, and I'm sharing a dressing room with Jerry Jarrett. Now, that name may not ring a bell, but Jerry Jarrett was the Tevye that I saw 25 years earlier in my first Broadway show, and his picture on the cover of that playbill had been on my wall for years. So 25 years later, I'm now sharing the dressing room with him. So I get on stage that night. They said, "We're just going to put you in tradition." And like, they gave me, cheat notes, and the dance captain was wonderful and talked me through what I needed to know. And I was in one or two other scenes. And so the funny thing was, in tradition, we're coming on stage and I'm walking on, and the person who told me to leave my picture and resume sees me from across the stage because they hadn't announced that I was in the show. And the gal that I went to high school with sees me on stage, and you can imagine it was crazy. A week later, I walked in the stage door and the same thing happened, and they said, "You're going on for Mendel." And I said, "I've never rehearsed this." And they said, "Don't worry, just don't get in Topol's way." And I'm like, how can I not get in his way? We haven't blocked anything. So so I went on. They said, "You know the lines, don't you?" And I said, "Of course I do." So I went on, and I was terrified because I thought, I'm so going to get fired. But long story short, I went on, and once again, this weird thing came over me, and I just felt so at home. And in the wedding scene where Mendel sort of lets it all rip with Tevye and with Perchik, I just let go. And then the curtain came down and I saw Topol go in the other direction. I thought, oh, this isn't good. Well, the end of the show came, and curtain came down after the corkscrew bows, and I see Topol walking over to me, and I thought, this is it. I'm done. And he grabbed me and he hugged me and he said, "Now that's the way the role's supposed to be played." And he went to the stage manager and told them not to get rid of me. And so that was, imagine auditioning at 4:00 and being on stage in a Broadway show at 8. It was wild.
No time to get nervous for certain.
No.
I mean, anybody who is watching this, who is an aspiring performer, that's the kind of thing they dream about. So, Tari, you've I think been understudying for a lot of leads over the years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
I mean, you did Boy from Oz. You did Groundhog Day. Oh gosh, Anything Goes. Grinch. You must have stories about going on.
I have a ton of stories. I have a story similar to Gary John's. When I went on in Showboat, that was my first Broadway show, and it was with Elaine Stritch and John McMartin. And I was 24 and I was new to the city. I actually got the show and I didn't live here. So I moved to New York with my first Broadway show, which, was my dream come true. But I remember one time I went on it was a small, featured role, but I went on and had a scene with Elaine Stritch. And after it was over, I was kind of scared, because it's Elaine Stritch. And I went off stage and was standing behind the boat, and we were waiting for our next entrance. And she comes off stage and goes, "Where's that girl?" And I was like, oh God, what did I do? And she came over to me. She goes, you've got it. You've got it. And I was like, oh, okay. Yep, you got it. And I was like, okay. And then from that moment on, she was such a huge proponent of me going on. I was a swing at the time. She loved it when I went on. She'd always watch me. It was kind of a really fun relationship we had. I was still scared to death of her, but because she was Elaine Stritch. But but yeah, I've had a lot of experiences. One of my favorite ones was going on for Sutton Foster in Anything Goes. I got to play Reno Sweeney, and finding myself on stage with Joel Grey, who I grew up listening to, and Cabaret and everything. And I was like, I have to pinch myself right now. I'm on stage doing a number with Joel Grey. What is my life right now? I love this industry, and I love that it gives us these opportunities that we are young and we see, idols, and we see people and we are like, oh, aspire to be like them or to work with them. And then we get to work with them. That's one of the things that I love so much. And when I meet young kids at the stage door and they tell me they're aspiring actors, I always say, well, we might work together someday. Mm-hmm. And they go, really? I'm like, oh, yes. I mean, your story, Gary John, about suddenly being in the room with someone who is on your wall, right? It's it blows your mind. You feel like you've arrived.
And the funny thing is too, you do meet people and you think, oh gosh, my career is not nearly like Elaine Stritch or whatever, but it's all in perspective. You meet people and they say, oh, I saw your name in a playbill on NYT. And we do have an impact. And because it's it's so fleeting, and what we do is not captured so that it can be seen. Well, now it is, because that's all the way it work. But there's no. It's not like film. So it's a once in a lifetime, that performance, and if someone sees you in it, it's so precious. It's so I think of the idols that I had when I was a kid, and they are not people that were household names, but to me, they were people in the musical theater that I adored. And when I got to work with them, it was bigger than, the man in the moon. We have a great tradition in our business, and a reverence for those that came before us, and that's what we're trying to take care of here in this small way on this program, because we want to keep the ghost light burning, and the green room is where we're all waiting to go back on stage. So this is our virtual green room every Sunday, and I just love hearing these stories. I've got a few of my own, but I want to hear yours, because I don't get to see you guys as much. Tony just slipped me a note saying, what is my idol story? Well, it was very similar in terms of Elaine Stritch, because when I worked with Helen Gallagher, who I absolutely adored from the time I was knee-high to a grasshopper, and I actually met her in the street because as a child, my parents took me to see No No Nanette. And the night that we saw No No Nanette, there was a bomb scare in the theater. This is when that was the thing, everything. There was a bomb scare every night. I don't know what that was, but in the early 70s or whatever. And so we were all thrown out into the street, and we went to the coffee shop across the street to keep warm, and Helen was sitting in there in costume, in makeup, and I was in seventh heaven. And my mother had been a dancer, and they found out they went to dancing school together. So, I was completely tongue-tied. I got her autograph on my playbill. And years later, I got to work with her. And she did something very similar to me that Elaine Stritch did to you. She came, we were rehearsing, and she says, "What are you doing after this show?" And I thought she was going to say, you shouldn't be allowed in the theater without a ticket. And I said, I'm filing for unemployment insurance or whatever. And she said, that's a crime when somebody like you isn't starring in a Broadway musical all the time. So I don't need anything else. To hear something like that was enough. That warms the cold nights. Michael, you wanted to share a story like that?
I have through lines. I'm like Kevin Bacon or Zelig. Medley, Old Gray, Fiddler on the Roof. Going to No No Nanette. We went backstage because my grandparents knew Bert Shevelov, who directed it. And I got to meet Ruby Keeler, and I was like a 16 or 17-year-old, and I didn't know what to say to her. It's going to go into a Maria Kornilova story. But anyway, so I didn't know what to say to Ruby Keeler, so I said, I just loved you. It brought back all the memories. This is from a 16-year-old. And then Maria Kornilova, Irving, came to visit her. And I had been a longtime fan of Maria Kornilova's. I saw her in Bravo Giovanni, Fiddler, but especially Zorba. So originally I dropped Ruby Keeler like a hot potato, and was schmoozing with Maria Kornilova. When Maria Kornilova did Zorba, Angela Lansbury won the Tony Award, but they also had a variety poll. And George Oppenheimer was the critic for Newsday, and he did an article about how he thought Dorothy Loudon should have won for The Fig Leaves Are Falling. And I wrote him a letter saying why Maria Kornilova should have won. And in the variety poll, Maria Kornilova tied with Angela Lansbury, and George Oppenheimer had voted for her. And then years later, I worked at a theater called the Lyric Theater of New York, and I did a musical version of Jean Anouilh's Time Remembered, and Maria Kornilova was my leading lady, and we became the Mutual Admiration Society. And I mean,
She lived in the same building as my grandparents when I was growing up, and I used to see her and George Irving, her husband, in the elevator, and I was starstruck then. Yes.
My grandmother's first cousin, Frances Butwin, and her husband Julian Butwin did the original English translations of Tevye's Daughter and other Shalom Aleichem. And one of their books was called The Old Country. And I was at a theater luncheon with several people, and I was telling the story about how the Old Country was the original title of Fiddler on the Roof. And then someone points out, you know who the woman sitting next to you is? Alyssa Stein. Her husband wrote the libretto. And she confirmed what I was saying.
Well, that's, I have to tell you, you mentioned Ruby Keeler there too. That very same night when we were going back into the theater, I went up and asked Ruby Keeler for her autograph because she was supposedly the big star in the show, even though I was enamored with Helen. And she literally said to me, "Not now, honey, I have a show to do." And I thought, oh, excuse me. And I sat there for the rest of the show hating Ruby Keeler. And before I go any further, anybody who knew her knows that she was the sweetest, most lovely person in the world. Well, I got to find this out years later because I was working on a cruise ship doing a world cruise. And as you know, if you've ever worked on a cruise ship, you have to have a lot of material for a world cruise because it goes on for 3 or 4 months and you can't repeat anything. So before I got on the ship, I borrowed some charts from someone else and I worked up an Jolson medley. Well, I was rehearsing with the Polish orchestra. And that is not an ethnic slur. It only means that they didn't understand a word I was saying. And with my Jolson charts at midnight in an empty ballroom with the lights up like it was a bathroom, it was so bright. And I heard Ruby was on the ship as a guest lecturer. And by this time she had had several strokes and she was very overweight and walking with a cane. And I'm up there doing Jolson. And for those, the two of you in the world who don't know, Ruby was married to Jolson very early on in her life. And it didn't end well. Jolson had a very big ego and it didn't end well. So I'm up there singing Jolson. The back door of the ballroom opens and in comes Ruby Keeler on her cane. And I'm singing Swanee or Mammy, and my life flashed before my eyes because I thought of this mean lady who wouldn't sign my autograph. And she put her cane on the back of a chair, held the back of the chair, and kicked her leg a couple of times and yelled out, "Sing it, honey!" And we became friends, and she was the nicest, sweetest person. And I realized, that night must have unnerved her tremendously because we were out in the street in the cold, a bomb scare. And, you meet people in a certain way, you make a judgment, and everything was different from then on. We had a lovely time, and she was a real team player. She got up and sang some old Ruby Keeler and Dick Powell songs with the cruise director one night. And I finally said to her, "Do you remember a night when there was a bomb scare in the theater? Oh, was that awful? I was so afraid of breaking a hip all the time." And I thought, all is forgiven. I love you. I love you to the moon and back. So that was it comes full circle. If you dissed Ruby Keeler, she dissed me, but we love Ruby. So, well,
I can tell you that I also have a signed playbill from No No Nanette from my childhood with Helen Gallagher's autograph and Ruby Keeler's autograph on it. So
Well, you got movies.
Tara's
I didn't
probably
get it, so-
too young. She's too young, but the rest of us have those playbills.
Tari, you're the only one that didn't meet Ruby Keeler. I don't know what.
I'm the only one, but I know who she is because I'm a
well,
tapper too. So.
The person I was friendly with from the cast was Jack Gilford.
Oh.
He and Madeline Gilford were close friends of mine. And I would write benefits for her daughter in Aspen. And when I flew out, Jack Gilford, in his janitor guise, was going to be the host welcoming everyone. And I was in the car, and he was going over the lines that I wrote for him over and over and over. And it was ecstasy. I mean, I could have died there just hearing Jack Gilford going over my lines like that.
You know, you used a term before that I've actually used to describe my life. I feel like Zelig. And you're the only one who would understand that reference. I always assume everybody understands what it was. You guys, you know the film Zelig? That,
yes.
You know, he's next to all the celebrities. Not famous himself, but, you know, and that's, so, I mean, that's a blessing, though, too. But no, Tari, you know, going along with what you were saying before, somebody's going to say, I saw Tari Kelly do XYZ, or went on for this role, and you know,
you know what was so cute? I did a regional show. It was 42nd Street, actually. I played Dorothy Brock. This was like 3 years ago, and one of the kids in the ensemble had seen me on tour when he was like 8, as Audrey in Little Shop of Horrors. I did it with Anthony Rapp, and then so we had like a benefit, and I said, do you want to sing Suddenly Seymour with me? And he started crying, and we sang Suddenly Seymour together. And this is a kid who he's like, I remember watching you up there and thinking, oh my God, you know, I'd love to do that role one day. And so, you know, in my own small little way, you know, to have to kind of pay it back that way, you know, it meant so much to me to be able to like actually perform with this guy who was 8, which also made me feel old, but that's another story. You know, I was like, oh my God. But it is about that our community. We're also welcoming, right? And I just and to pay it forward like that, and like you get to be friends with Ruby Keeler, and you know, I got to be friendly with Elaine, John McMartin, and all these people that I've always looked up to, and it means so much to me, like that I'm welcomed into that, right?
Yep. You know, Michael, when I was telling you that Maria and George lived in the building that my grandparents lived in when I grew up, I knew George from cast albums. And that voice that was on a million, we're talking about George Irving for any of our viewers who don't know.
He's a voice on the grid.
And he was, you know, he also did the voice of a lot of cartoon characters and Underdog. He was the voice there. And, you know, for all the work he did in the theater, those are the things that people remembered. And I was lucky enough to do the Roar of the Grease Paint with him. I was playing the Anthony Newley part, and he was doing Sir. And the first day we rehearsed, when he sang, "Look at that face," I burst into tears. And because I said, I've been listening to your voice since I was a kid, and now you're singing to me. And we had talk about Christmas time. We always remember him as the voice of the Heat Miser on that animated, what is it, Year Without a Santa Claus or what?
Yes. Yes.
So that year when we were doing Roar of the Grease Paint, CVS came out with little dolls of those characters on that show. And so a Heat Miser doll came out. And I said to him, you know, George, you have an action figure out here. Do you want me to go and pick you up a few? Because I bought some and had him autograph it for my friends. And he said, no, all those years in the theater, that's what they remember. He did not want any part of it, but he was tickled, I guess, eventually that, you know, that we, he was part of a Christmas special that we all watch. Tari, you got to be part of a perennial on stage doing Grinch.
Oh yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah,
I loved that. Yeah, it was great fun. I mean, 15 shows a week. I say it was great fun now, but it meant a lot to me, and I'm on the cast recording, which is awesome. You know, that's an awesome thing to be a part of. But I just love that. I love that story.
Well, you're in a lot of cast recordings. You're on Groundhog Day.
Yes. Who saw Groundhog Day? Anybody? I love that show. I love that show. I know it wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but I was really proud of it. But yeah, I'm on that cast recording, man. Anything goes. I did Sutton's tap sounds on that. She didn't want to stay after, so I did them.
Really?
For her.
Right,
yeah, but I mean, we're both good tappers, so nobody knows and nobody cares. But
that's an inside story that nobody knew until today. It's like,
okay.
Gwen Verdon tapped for Gene Kelly and Singing in the Rain, supposedly.
It's not like she doesn't tap; she just didn't want to stay late.
Harold Arlen sang the last note in I Never Had Seen Snow for Diane Carroll. And Stephen Sondheim says, you ain't getting whatever.
38 cents for me. 88 cents for me. Yeah. Yeah, these are the things that only those of us who study the annals of those obscure books on musical theater history, and we eat it up, and that's what our audience is doing. So I thank you guys for
the song you played at the beginning. I'm part of the chorus, by the way.
Are you really?
Yes.
Well, I have to ask you something else too, because this is something very unique. You virtually grew up in living in a place that is rich in theatrical lore, the Algonquin Hotel, and there's you can get a book and read all about it, right? So tell us about it.
Yes. Yeah, from 1946 through 1987, my grandparents, the Bodneys, owned the Algonquin Hotel, and I had all kinds of growing experiences. And you talk about idolizing people and then working with them. Two of the people who would stay there were Dale Wasserman, who wrote Man of La Mancha and the stage version of Cuckoo's Nest, and Mary Chase, who wrote Harvey and Mrs. McThing. And they both asked me to write with them years later. And it was...
And you did write a musical version of Mrs. McThing, too.
Yeah, it was a Goodspeed. A heartbreak story, but it's a wonderful show. And when Goodspeed at Chester opened, there were 4 shows in their inaugural season, and 3 of them had associations with people who brought in money or were related to the Goodspeed, and Mrs. McThing was chosen out of all the others and was premiered there. And it was a lovely, lovely experience, except the first couple of reviews said it was going to be the new Annie, which also started at Goodspeed. And then Michael Price, who ran the theater, replaced our leading lady at the last minute, and the variety critic happened to have written a love letter to that leading lady just before the show opened, and he panned the life out of us, and that was it for then. But out of that experience, I wrote Tales of Tinseltown because I had something of a nervous breakdown, and Hollywood Babylon became Goodspeed Opera House for me.
Well,
yeah,
it hasn't stopped you from keeping on and writing new musicals. That's what I don't want anything not to succeed, but I would like to see that when we get back and going on Broadway, that we have more original musicals and not so many jukebox shows and not so many retrospectives. I mean, there's a place for everything, but I would just like to see the proportions come back a little bit.
Well, there definitely seems to be an influx of those, because I think people think that they're a sure thing,
Yeah.
That I really want to see new musicals.
Well, that's the thing. Don't you want to, now I feel like people go to the theater and because it costs so much and because it's such an event, they want to know what it is before they've walked in the door, and that's a shame, I feel, because that part of that big surprise. It's like opening an Easter egg. You don't know what you're going to get. Maybe the period we're going through is going to cause us to reinvent a little bit and re-examine what live theater is and what makes it special. I know that when we see these things virtually, it's good for us to keep in touch and to keep us working, but it can only remind us that there's no substitute for the real thing. So
something I'm very proud about, during the pandemic, I and composer Ned Paul Ginsberg, who wrote Boynton Beach Club with me, did a special music video called "The Theater Will Survive," which raised a lot of money for Actors Fund. We had 4 Tony winners. We had, Judy Kay and Chuck Cooper and Faith Prince and Paulo's Shot and Anita Gillette, and it goes on, and you can see it on YouTube. Just look up "The Theater Will Survive," Michael Colby.
Great. We will do. It's gone out of my head, so yeah, Michael, talk about, you say that Ludlow Lad was a Christmas musical that should be done now. Maybe somebody should be picking this up. Or...
there are so many of my shows that I would love to see done again. Ludlow Lad, after I did the musical version of Time Remembered with Maria Kornilova, the Lyric Theater of New York asked me to write a Christmas show for them, and I said, well, I'm a Jewish boy who happened to have celebrated Christmas because half my family from the South, and you've seen Alfred Urey plays. But anyway, so I wrote the show in the perfect amount of time, 10 days, and it was all sung and all rhyme. So we were technically an opera, and it's been done with Kristen Chenoweth and with a lot of other great people in subsequent years. And WBAI did a radio version of it. And I also wrote a sequel called Charlotte Sweet. Ludlow Lad, it's about a boy born on Christmas. And Charlotte Sweet, a girl who was born on Valentine's Day.
Well, there you have it. I was very familiar with Charlotte Sweet for years, so I did not know about Ludlow Lad, and I'm so glad to know. Listen, if a Jewish boy can write about Christmas, someone named LaRosa can do a Jewish show forever and ever.
A lot of the famous songs, so why not?
Well, yes. I mean, Irving Berlin wrote the most famous Easter song and the most famous Christmas
Easter
song.
Parade.
And
Easter Parade.
Yes. So when I actually saw Boynton Beach at Surflight 2 seasons ago, because I was down there to direct. What was it right after that? Oh, yes, the Arthur Conan Doyle, Ken Ludwig, Baskerville. That's what I was saying. So I did see it, and that's a theater that, Gary, you've worked at Surflight, but never at the same time. I think I did 30 shows there over the years. And
I did like 5 seasons, but it was a long time ago.
Well, mind you, they do 30 shows in 30 weeks, so it's not like it's all that much, but yes, I've directed quite a bit there and done a lot of shows, and but your show, Boynton Beach, brought a lot of illustrious Broadway names down to Surflight, and that was kind of exciting to see that. So
Andrea McArdle.
Yes. So what's good for Surflight is good for us all, is what I say. I was also thinking about Tari, when you did with the New York Philharmonic, you did some work too, right?
Yeah. I did Carousel.
Yeah, the one that was videotaped.
Yes, the one that was on PBS. Yeah,
had a bunch of nobodies in it.
A whole bunch of nobodies. Yeah. It's so funny. I worked with Kelly OHara years before I think it was probably the last time she did a regional show. It was at Music Theater of Wichita, and we did Showboat, and I helped restage it. We did all the original choreography and stuff, and she played Magnolia, and I played Ellie, and helped teach her. But I knew her from then, you know, so that was fun. Yeah.
Well,
but yeah, a whole bunch of nobody.
You know, I think. Well, I know we're all having a little tough time.
I know. It's so weird because you're right. You know, I don't mean that I'm always working, but I really am very lucky that I've had so many different experiences from tours to Broadway to regional theater, which I absolutely adore doing. And because I've had the Broadway experience, I've been lucky enough to, you know, I've saved enough money to be able to go do regional theater, you know, at even some theaters that don't pay as well. You know, I can do dream roles at places like that. And, but in doing that, I've met so many different people that end up being like Kelly OHara or, you know, what have you. And Jessie Mueller, we crossed paths in Chicago. I was doing Drowsy Chaperone and she was doing Fiddler right before me. And so we crossed paths doing that. So we knew each other from Chicago. But yeah, so I'm always working, and that's what's so strange about this year, and I'm sure you all are going through it too. I've never not been involved in some kind of production for this length of time.
Yeah.
It's very odd. It's very odd to not have that connection, that community with people.
Well, and we're all astounded when the shutdown began. None of us could ever have imagined it would last this long. But of course, we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel now. And
yes.
And I think that when we do come out, we'll see things differently in many ways. And hopefully we'll have a renaissance, so to speak. And, you know, I always say that I look back on a year and I say, what was I doing this time last year? And all the things that happened, only maybe one or two of them were ones that I expected to happen. And there are always some nice surprises, some nice Easter eggs. I actually got to do a virtual production of a play a few weeks ago, a Lorraine Hansberry play. And I never imagined that I would be doing that in this format with a bunch of people I never worked with before. And it was a great experience. And thank goodness our union worked with this theater and got me some weeks so I could get my health insurance. You mentioned doing regional theater. We get to play wonderful roles in regional theater. And if you can afford to do them, at least you get your health insurance.
Well, you get your health insurance and you get that, you know, just that feeling of playing those roles that you may not get to play, you know, on Broadway because like I'm not a name, you know, I can do the work and I'm a good understudy, but I haven't ascended to that kind of fame yet. So to be able to do those kind of roles, it feeds your soul. Right.
Well, you're that famous in my book, you know. People who have ever seen you perform, and we always have to know that talent isn't enough. It's and I'm saying this for the young people out there who are going into our crazy business. It's a roll of the dice. There are many of us, but you have to be ready, as Tari obviously was when she was understudying something, and Gary John could. He was at the right place at the right time and had all the trappings ready to go. And
I mean, that's the thing about being lucky. I always say I'm lucky, but I was ready as well.
That's right. You have to be that combination. And I think, you know, the other thing I say to young people is it's a tightrope walk, being able to be to have enough humility to keep learning and be gracious to people, and then have enough gravitas to know what you can offer, so that when you get rejected and you don't get the job, you lose it to XYZ, or you have enough mettle to get out of bed in the morning and keep one foot in front of the other.
Back at it. Yeah.
This period is testing all of our mettle right now, but you know, I'm going to segue into something soon because I want to show a clip of some of Gary John's work in that show. It feels like I never get to talk about anything else with you, but it's a good clip because it's
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Well, you worked with Brad Oscar most recently doing Fiddler, And I was his understudy in the producers, and and he's a wonderful man, a mensch, as they say, and really his story was that of being at the right place at the right time and being prepared too. And I will say that when he led our company of the producers, no one could have been more gracious and generous to all of us. He was beloved, and so I imagine working with him on Fiddler was pretty terrific too. But we have some. I guess it was publicity for the show and interviewing you and showing some pictures. So we'll get to that for our intermission feature. But we do have a quiz question coming up, which I gather that Michael is going to know this because he's the trivia. He's out trivia. This trivia here today. So Tari's birthday was yesterday, and mine is today. And I share this birthday with a lot of famous people. My friend John Davidson, Dick Van Dyke, Nancy Opel, a lot of theater luminaries. But there was a famous autobiography written by someone who also shares this birthday. And who knows what performer's autobiography is entitled "I'll Cry Tomorrow"? So that Michael knows.
Joey, so that because Vivian Siegel couldn't perform on that label. They did two albums of Pal Joey, one with the studio cast and one with the revival cast. And this person subbed for Vivian Siegel on that recording.
Well, so I will. We want to show our clip here of Gary John at work on Fiddler, the umpteenth production. And this is your intermission. You can go and watch this clip, or you can, which I will do. But if you need to take a bathroom break, you can run and then watch it when we post this on your wall. So we'll be back to answer that quiz question and enjoy this clip.
Come see the show. It is phenomenal. This is one of the best musicals ever written.
It is, and it's a beautiful production in a beautiful theater and a lovely space to be able to see a show like this, because the audience is so intimate. We are so close to them. It's a lovely way to experience a show.
And honestly, you'll laugh and you'll cry. You really will.
So if you're ever lucky enough to be in a production of Fiddler on the Roof where this gentleman directs it, you're getting it from the horse's mouth, from somebody who has lived and breathed it and performed it and loves it as much as you will. That's it's great.
I love that show. I love doing that show. I've played Huddle 3 times. It's kind of like my Ado Annie.
Well, I would love to work with
here
you,
I
Tari.
come.
And for a girl named Kelly, that's
know.
again.
Well, that production was wonderful. Joanna Glushak, who you probably noticed there, I had done Fiddler with her on national tour with Theater Bickel like 5 years after the Broadway production, and she's just a gem to work with, and she and Brad together were so delightful.
Well, Theodore Bickel was my papa in the Rothschilds when I was a little boy, and that's what I got.
I love it. So that's where we first met. I saw that production.
I love
the
end of it and the tour. The thing is, I was always auditioning to replace the little boy. I was the wrong height for the one they were replacing at that time, so I knew I was going to get it eventually, and then the show closed and whatever. But you talk about your childhood idols. When I was 2.5, my grandmother took me to see Mary Martin in The Sound of Music, and there was Theodore Bickel playing the papa of all these children. So I guess if you take a 2.5-year-old to go to the theater, you get what you pay for. They're going to go into show business. You're in trouble. So anyway, before I forget, because sometimes I do segue and we never do it, the autobiography entitled "I'll Cry Tomorrow" is the performer. Who is the performer that wrote that autobiography?
I know the movie was Susan Hayward, right?
Susan Hayward played
Lillian Roth.
I know.
Lillian Roth, exactly.
Oh my God, I got it wrong.
I know, so I didn't let you answer. I thought, oh my, Swami of the trivia of musical theater. Actually, stumped him for a second.
I was confusing it with "I'll Cry" with "A Song in My Heart."
Yes, and I know what you were thinking of with Vivian Siegel and
Jane Froman. Yeah,
yes,
I'm sorry,
Jane Froman. Yes,
which is also Susan Hayward.
Yes.
Yeah,
I know, right? Why do I know these things?
Susan Hayward was in so many of those movies where she had an alcohol issue, and
not
many people know that she also played Mame in Las Vegas.
Yes,
for a very brief time, but I would love to have seen her play Mame. And Lillian Roth was a child actor, as if you've ever seen "I'll Cry Tomorrow," a wonderful performance by Susan Hayward. She was on Broadway when she was 7 years old, and she was in Earl Carroll's Vanities when she was a young woman, and I think she told people that she was over 21 and she was only 15, something like that. So and went into the movies. But of course, if you get to read this book, she had a lifelong battle with alcoholism, and then did this amazing thing on This Is Your Life, where it made her famous, and wrote this wonderful autobiography. And in the 60s, she came back to Broadway.
I saw it.
And I Can Get It For You Wholesale, right? And played Elliot Gould's mother. And then she was in a show called 70 Girls
70.
The Kendra and Ebb show. And also, she did the national tour of Funny Girl with top billing, but not playing Fanny. She was Fanny's mother. So she had a big name at one time, and but
that was with Marilyn Michaels. Was that with Marilyn Michaels?
I believe so. Yeah. So that was our quiz question for the day. That's our birthday buddy, Tari. Almost your birthday buddy.
Almost my birthday. Frank Sinatra is my birthday, and Bob Barker.
It could have been Barbara Mitchell.
See that? Yeah. So actually, I get to this point in the show, and I always ask this scary question: what are we working on now? What are we looking for to the future? I know, and Tari, I feel your
I'm
pain.
like,
I feel your pain. But all I can say is you're the one who goes from show to show to show. So right now, if you have a little rest.
Right.
Not so bad. It's not so bad.
I actually am working on a little thing, but I'll talk about that later.
Well, and as I will tell you this doing this show for Theatre Emery, Les Blancs, was a complete surprise to me. So we never know. It's kind of what I was saying before. You never know what's going to be around the corner, and the theaters are getting very inventive about how to put stuff on virtually right now. And so we'll get through these next few months, and then we'll be back at work. I know, Gary John, you are working on a new play about Jackson Pollock.
Yes, I'm very excited about this, actually. This is a play called The Crooked Heart, and it's a beautiful play, which is two characters. Actually, there is a third character who doesn't speak, but it's a very intimate play, and it was written by the wonderful Susan Tepper, who is a poet and has been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. So she's a wonderfully accomplished writer, and this project is something I was incredibly touched that she came to me and wanted me to direct it. Most of my career has truthfully been involved with musicals, so to be asked to do something of this nature was wonderful and thrilling for me. And I'm a big fan of her work. I've read several of her books. She's written prose as well as poetry. And anyway, so this project is one that we are working on right now. We have the desire and interest to feature a very big celebrity in the title role of Jackson Pollock. And so while I can't, things because of the pandemic obviously are somewhat on hold, but we are working diligently to move this forward so that the minute things open up, that we're ready. And I'm really excited by it. The project as well as collaborating with Susan. So it's quite exciting. The other thing I'm doing, which is completely different, is I had, like Tari, lost all the work that I had for the year literally in a day in March.
Yep.
And I had been booked for the entire year. But so I was struggling, like everybody, to find work and to think about, what's the future hold. But a good part of my career has also been doing university work. I love working with younger people who are starting out in their careers. And so I'm an adjunct professor at Montclair State University and have worked many guest artist positions at various universities around the country. So University at Buffalo had asked me to do a show which was canceled, and about 2 weeks ago, they asked me to do something which is going to be virtual. We're doing an evening of Gilbert and Sullivan. So I'm quite excited about that because, first of all, I haven't done Gilbert and Sullivan before, and that's always thrilling to me to learn and explore and to delve into something new. And that work is fascinating and incredibly relevant, surprisingly. Their operettas dealt with feminism and dealt with class and many things that we talk about today. So that's the other thing that I'm working on. We just finished casting this week, and we'll go into production after the new year, and it will be virtual. So that's going to be new territory. But I'm thrilled to be busy again and have two things to be working on.
Yeah, it was quite a shock that second week in March or whenever it was. I had 3 things lined up. The first time in my life, they weren't overlapping, so I didn't have to ask somebody to wait for 3 days or what was I going to do for to get from this place to that. It looked perfect. And as you all know, when it looks perfect, just as I said during our sound check today, how everything was going swimmingly, and then we lost Gary John LaRosa for a few moments. But here we are, and we're learning this technology. We're learning how to do this. I've said this many times on this show, but I was terrified of doing video auditions or casting session like this because do I really look like that? That's not good. I would do 12 takes. And now I go and I do something like I would for an audition. I put my best foot forward and let the chips fall where they may. And the best thing about doing an audition like this, I think, usually when you go and you do an audition, you go home and then sit by the phone and wait for the phone to ring. I forget that I've done these things. They're in the can because I never had to leave the house. There wasn't that effort to go downtown and get dressed and all this. So it's kind of a nice surprise when the phone rings and somebody says, "Well, I saw your audition tape," or something like that. So I think we're learning to work this way. But when we get back in the room where it happens, boy, is that going to be sweet. It's going to be.
It will be spectacular.
Yeah, I know at least one of the shows that I did, I was going to do, I think will happen, but I'm not quite sure when, but hopefully I'll have 12 other offers for that time period. And I will just be grateful to be back on the boards. So Michael, what are you working on now?
Well, I've been writing articles for online pages like Nightlife Exchange and www.theaterpizzazz.com. One of them was called The Next Renaissance, about what will happen in the future for the theater. I also have a show that I co-wrote with John C. Introcaso called Dangerous. That's option for Broadway. Dennis Jones is the choreographer director. And we've had some very successful presentations, but it's been on standby because of this. And otherwise, I've been writing a lot of special material. Maureen Taylor, who is a wonderful theater and cabaret performer. Last year, she did an evening of my songs called Cosmic Connections, and she was up for a MAC award for that. And we're going to go into a studio and record that. And now she's working on a sequel of another evening of my lyrics, if we can find enough good ones. So that's the challenge right now.
Well, I'm a big fan of your work and all of your work. Tari, I just feel like you've always gone from one thing to the next. You will. I still think of you as that adorable trouser-wearing ingenue in Triumph of Love. I can't believe it was that many years ago. But
I know. Can you believe it? I can't either.
But now you are a leading lady. So you have a whole new realm of work.
Yeah, and I mean, I just finished right before the pandemic started. I was just on the road with Anastasia, the national tour, playing Countess Lily. So I'm, the comic relief now, which I love, and I actually left that tour 5 weeks before the pandemic started to do some other projects, but also because I missed being home.
Bye.
Hilarious. And then, and then I just like you, I had things lined up too. And it was some more like leading lady roles I was supposed to do next to Normal. And I was actually going to do a comedic role in Candide. I was going to do the old woman.
Oh, the old lady
at good speed with one buttock.
Yeah.
So,
we're all home and eating now, so there'll be plenty of buttock soon.
That's right.
I'm sure, but that's great. I would love to see you in that part. It's very fun. You have comic chops, I
got the comedy now.
Yes,
I do the comedy now.
I saw Tari do Thoroughly Modern Millie at the Fulton.
Oh, at the Fulton, yes.
That was wonderful.
Fun. Oh, thank you.
And,
that's a hard role.
Well, I was wondering whether any of you guys knew each other before this. It's a cruel trick sometimes to put you on a show with people you don't know. But I'm finding out in this business, we all know each other one way or another.
We've seen each other's work, or yeah.
Now, how did you? Maybe this is a secret, but Michael, I think you've been on some movie sets lately too.
It's more TV.
Yeah.
I could talk about the Algonquin Kid. I could talk about my musicals, but more people are impressed that I sat right next to Rachel Brosnahan in an episode of Mrs. Maisel during the.
I have to tell you, we not only are we big fans in this household, but Tony, who you saw in the beginning, my husband and the producer of this show, did many, many days doing exactly what you did on Mrs. Maisel. And I mean, it's one of the only things that actors can do for work right now too. The studios are opening up, and whether you do a day player or a lead or a background actor, we're very, very grateful for the work. And I have to commend the studios for really working hard to keep it safe and keep us working, because it's amazing. I don't know, Tari, whether you've done any film work lately, but you have to go in for like about 14 COVID tests before you're allowed on the set. I've had more nasal swabs in the last month
than your brain
I ever planned to in my life, but they're being very careful. And
sign me up.
Well, it's odd to say this, but a movie set with all those people is probably one of the safer places to work right now.
Right.
So we all have to eat our catered meal behind plexiglass, and but it's we're very happy to do it. So, well, I'm so happy that you joined us and me on my birthday today. This has been a treat to talk to you. I always forget that we are in the middle of a pandemic when I finish a show here, because I feel like I've been in person with you guys, and I'm very grateful to have such talented friends and so willing to come and share their stories on this show. And at this point, I really I just started doing this last week, and I've been using kind of my virtual Rolodex to invite people to be on the show. And I've been very lucky. We have so many people that have volunteered to do it. This is, as I say, our 19th show. We have 3 or 4 guests every week from all over the country and all walks of life. So if there are theater professionals out there who are watching and have any interest in joining us on this fun panel, please email me at beyondthegreenroom@gmail.com. That's all one word, beyondthegreenroom@gmail.com. And we'll get you on the panel somehow. I plan on continuing this for a while. It's been great fun and a great morale booster for everybody in the industry. And Tari, you were the only victim that we haven't shown or listened to anything of your work. So our play out today.
I
do want to announce my guest for next week. We have Andrew Foote, Adrienne Hick, and Gary Troy, 3 old friends of mine who I've worked with. So it's kind of our like last show before the Christmas holidays kind of family show. So that's who we're talking to next week. I'm looking forward to that. So this is a clip. I sound a cut from a recording that I guess was a demo for a Harold Arlen review called "One for My Baby."
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
But it definitely shows off your magnificent voice and your comic chops, and I couldn't resist it, because the title of this song is the very unexpected "He loved me till the all clear came." So when the all clear comes for us to join live theater again, we will be thinking of you singing this marvelous Harold Arlen song.
Sounds like a plan.
This is our playoff for today. Thank you. I will see you all next week on Beyond the Green Room. Enjoy Tari Kelly's magnificent singing. Bye-bye.
I was strolling in the park just as it was getting dark when I heard the siren moan. I ducked into a shelter, willy-nilly, helter-skelter, to find that I was not alone. There was someone next to me, and though neither one of us could see, we sensed each other close at hand. And there within the gloom of that little blackout room, love and I played a one-night stand. He loved me till the all-clear came. He loved me till the all-clear came. He had the strongest yen in the dark, and then suddenly the all-clear came. He loved me till the lights went on. I looked around and he had gone. Our story seemed to go like a picture show. Suddenly there came the dawn.